This video is about the famous people and celebrities who passed away in 1972 in the United States. This is the fourth episode. Before we proceed, please subscribe to our channel to support us. Pat Brady. He was born in December 1914 and he died in February 1972. His age was 57 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was heart attack. Pat Brady was an American actor and musician, best known as the comical sidekick of the popular cowboy film and television star Roy Rogers. On his eponymous radio and television series, he first appeared on stage at the age of 4 in a roadshow production of Mrs. Wicks of The Cabbage Patch. From that initial stage appearance until his death, his life was dedicated to the world of entertainment as a musician and actor, also exclusively in comedic roles. In 1935, while working as a bassist in California, Pat struck up a friendship with a young country and western singer named Leonard Sly, a member of the popular Sons of the Pioneers. When Len Sly was elevated to screen stardom as Roy Rogers, he recommended Brady as his replacement in the Sons. However, as Bob Nolan, an original member of the Sons, was referred to as Bob, and the Sons thought one Bob was enough. Bob Brady then became Pat Brady. Making the transition to films in 1937, Brady played comedy relief in several of the Charles Starrett westerns at Columbia Pictures. In the early 1940s, he moved to Republic, where he played Zanny Camp Cook's Sparrow Biffle in Roy Rogers films. Ted Pierce. He was born in August 1906 and he died in February 1972. His age was 65 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was stroke. Ted Pierce was an American screenwriter and voice actor of animated cartoons, principally from the mid-1930s to the late 1950s. Pierce spent the majority of his career as a writer for the Warner Brothers Termite Terrace animation studio, whose other notable alumni include Chuck Jones and Michael Maltese, contributing storylines and gags for numerous shorts. From 1935 until his departure in 1959, Pierce also worked as a writer at Fleischer Studios. From 1939 to 1941, Jones credited Pierce in his autobiography, Chuck Amok: The Life and Times of an Animated Cartoonist, in 1989 as being the inspiration for the character Pepe Le Pew, the haplessly romantic French skunk, due to Pierce's self-proclamation that he was a ladies' man. He had one son named Geoffrey Pierce from a formal marriage. In early credits, his name was spelled T-E-D. He was said to have added an extra D to his name as a way of lampooning puppeteer Bill Bell. When he dropped one of the L from his first name, he contributed the story of the Tom and Jerry short Tall in the Trap in 1962, directed by Gene Deitch. Basil O'Connor. He was born in January 1892 and he died in March 1972. His age was 80 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Basil O'Connor was an American lawyer and non-profit executive in cooperation with United States President Franklin D. Roosevelt. He started 2 foundations for the rehabilitation of polio patients and the research on polio prevention and treatment. From 1944 to 1949, he was the chairman and president of the American Red Cross, and from 1945 to 1950, he was chairman of the League of Red Cross Societies. Basil O'Connor did his undergraduate work at Dartmouth College and graduated from Harvard Law School, then was admitted to the bar to practice law in 1915 for 1 year. He worked in New York for the law firm of Cravath and Henderson, and for the next 3 years for Streeter and Holmes in Boston. In 1919, he founded his own law firm in New York. In August 1921, while vacating with his family At their summer home on Campobello Island, Franklin D. Roosevelt fell ill and was diagnosed with polio. FDR later sought therapy at a resort in Warm Springs, Georgia. After visiting Roosevelt there, O'Connor characterized the place as a miserable mess, and he decided to promote public support for the rehabilitation of those with polio. Frederick Brown. He was born in October 1906 and he died in March 1972. His age was 65 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. Frederick Brown was an American science fiction, fantasy, and mystery writer. He is known for his use of humor and for his mastery of the short form stories, 1 to 3 pages, often with indigenous plotting devices and surprise endings. Humor and a postmodern outlook carried over into his novels as well. One of his stories, Arena, was adapted to a 1967 episode of the American television series Star Trek. According to his wife, Brown hated to write and did whatever he could to put it off: play his flute, challenge a friend to a game of chess, or tease Ming Ta, his Siamese cat. When Brown would have trouble with certain story, he would take a long bus trip in order to sit and think for days on end. When he would finally return home to sit himself in front of the typewriter, he produced work in a variety of genres: mystery, science fiction, short fantasy, black comedy. Many of his books make use of the threat to the supernatural or occult before the straight explanation comes at the end. For example, Night of the Jabberwock is a humorous narrative of an extraordinary day in the life of a small-town newspaper editor. Zach Wheat. He was born in May 1888 and he died in March 1972. His age was 83 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was heart failure. Zach Wheat was an American professional baseball player. He played in Major League Baseball (MLB) as a left fielder from 1909 to 1927, most notably as a member of Brooklyn Dodgers, who were known as the Robins at that time. After 18 seasons in Brooklyn, he played his final season with the Philadelphia Athletics. Although Reed spent the first part of his career playing in the dead ball era, he hit over .300 in 13 seasons and won the National League Batting Championship in 1918. He ended his career with a .317 career batting average and remains the Dodgers' all-time franchise leader in games, at-bats, plate appearances, hits, doubles, triples, and total bases. Wheat was also known as a stylish and graceful outfielder, leading National League left fielders in putouts 7 times and fielding percentage twice. Wheat was unanimously elected to the National Baseball Hall of Fame in 1959. His brother, McKinley Mac Wheat, also played in the major leagues, and the two were teammates in Brooklyn for 5 seasons. Len Ford. He was born in February 1926 and he died in March 1972. His age was 46 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was heart attack. Len Ford was an American professional baseball player who was an offensive and defensive end from 1948 to 1958. He played college football for the University of Michigan and professional football for the Los Angeles Dons, Cleveland Browns, and Green Bay Packers. He was introduced into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1976 and the University of Michigan Athletic Hall of Honor in 1996. Ford was an all-city athlete at his high school in Washington, D.C. and attended Morgan State University after graduating in 1944. After a brief stint in the United States Navy, the following year he transferred to Michigan, where he played on the Michigan Wolverines football team as an offensive and defensive end. He played for Michigan from 1945 to 1947 and was a member of the undefeated 1947 team that has been selected as the best team in the history of Michigan football. Ford was passed over in all 32 rounds of the 1948 NFL Draft, but was selected by the Los Angeles Dons of the rival All-American Football Conference, where he played for 2 seasons as an offensive and defensive end. After All-American Football Conference dissolved in 1949, Ford played 8 seasons as a defensive end for the Cleveland Browns. Thanks for watching the video. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Have a nice day.